even though Jerry's clock says 6:01, so.
The City Hall clock says 6:01.
6:01 at City Hall. So that, they want to make sure they're on top of things all the time. So call the meeting to order. At this point, we entertain any citizen comments. Anything that's not on the agenda for tonight. If we don't have anything, I would just like to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. And let's have the consideration of approval of the agenda.
So move.
Motion a second. Clerk will call the roll.
Dar,
Aye.
Yeager,
Aye.
Reisman,
Aye.
Nittman,
Aye.
Knighton.
Aye.
All right. Next, we'll have the approval of the minutes of the February 10th and February 16th meetings. Any questions on those minutes?
So move.
Second.
Any other comments on the minutes? Clerk will call the roll.
Yeager,
Aye.
Reisman,
Aye.
Nittman,
Aye.
Knighton,
Aye.
Dar.
Aye.
Hopefully Trudy's voice will make it through the whole meeting, so.
Hey, don't knock a good thing here.
All right, next we have the consideration of the approval of the consent calendar. Anyone have any questions on the consent calendar?
I think I ask this every year, but where's the rush stop at?
It's on South Main.
On top of the hill there, South Main?
Yeah, top of the hill there.
Yeah.
Cedar Hill.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I couldn't think of.
Easy, Tootie.
Now you need to go back to Salisbury Baptist Home. You need to get something that was more in Jerry's, genre.
I was gonna say the name du jour.
Was that a motion, Delane, or what? Don't move for the consent calendar.
Second.
Any other comments or questions? Clerk will call the roll.
Reisman,
Aye.
Nittman,
Aye.
Knighton,
Aye.
Dar,
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
All right. Business of the mayor, not really much there. I was on the radio this morning and I did mention we were having our public hearing tonight on the budget and invited anyone who was willing to come down or else join us on Zoom. So we'll see how big of a crowd we get.
We gotta get those 25% headlines to draw a crowd here.
Yeah, I kind of like the non-crowds, but I did city notes today. I kind of tried to explain the budget in my city notes, so we'll see if it makes any sense. I tried to do budget 101, but we'll see how that works out. So, all right. Speaking of city notes, Keith, did you do yours last week?
See, in front of everyone, are you, Dean?
Pardon me?
Like that? You aren't asking that question here in open session.
Oh,
It's not on the agenda, are you?
it's business of the mayor.
Cool.
Anything qualifies for that.
All right, moving right along. So speaking of public hearings for the budget, we would now like to open the budget hearing for the fiscal year 22 budget. Do we have any filing of affidavit?
Yes, Your Honor.
How about any written comments or objections?
I didn't get any. Steve, did you get any?
I did not receive any, no.
How about any oral comments or objections this evening?
Don't move to close.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Pittman,
Aye.
Knighton,
Aye.
Dar,
Aye.
Yeager,
Aye.
Reisman.
Aye.
All right, next then is consideration of resolution 2921, which is approving the proposed fiscal year 22 budget. And discussion here.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just briefly recap here. We're coming to the close of a another budget session. They're never easy. They're always unique. And we made it to the end, so that's good. Generally we saw an overall increase in valuation, so that was helpful through the process. With that being said, our total revenues for everything is going to be 26,210,937, and our expenditures with transfers out are 25,279,214. So revenue is slightly higher than expenditures. I'd venture to say that a good portion of that is our full drawdown on the Water Resource Recovery Facility loan. In the general fund, we are budgeting a slight a planned deficit, I guess you'd say, as we're about 136 in the hole. But that's with 140,000 going towards Parkside, which will be reimbursed for, down the road here as the homes are built and the TIF is collected. So overall, our levy rate is holding about the same, going down a little bit, 3.8 cents to be exact. As far as our max levies that we have, those are going up a total of 1.25%. So it's below the state threshold of 2% that requires a supermajority. So that's positive. Like I said before, there's a lot of things we're doing in this budget. There's a number of things, equal or greater that we're not doing, but we're doing what we can. And I think we've got a good budget put together. And I guess that's all I have to say about that.
I think it's a good budget as well. I think a lot of hard work was put in by you guys, by staff and so on. And I think it's important that we got that levy down, even though it's not a big amount, we got it down below last year. I think that's proven out already, but it'll work. We got a good budget. So move for, go ahead.
Oh, I just got to ask if there's any other comments.
I'll second.
I moved. You got that, Trudy?
All right, any other comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Knighton,
Aye.
Dar,
Aye.
Jaeger,
Aye.
Friesman,
Aye.
Pittman.
Aye.
All right. Well, like Jerry said, I think we had a good budget process and end up with a good budget. So we'll move into the next year, starting in July. Next is consideration of resolution 3021, amendment to the agreement with SEH for the housing sidewalk and parking lot project. I see Katie's with us. Steve, do you want to lead into this one, or?
I'll probably let John lead into this one.
Oh, John, okay.
Sure. Okay, well, what this resolution number 3021, what this is for the approval of a supplemental agreement for SEH. Now, the project was for sidewalk improvements and parking lot improvements at North Cedar Terrace and South Cedar Terrace. And SEH did prepare the plans and specs. And then when construction was started, SEH was retained for the construction administration, and that was by a supplemental agreement, and that was for a total of $22,500. Now, these supplemental agreements for construction, they're always prepared, and they're based on estimated number of hours that the consultant is going to use during the project. And this one was estimated with 80 hours of observation time. And there are actually a number of items that were added during the construction, and they're listed in the summary. And those items required an additional 14 trips, and it ended up taking 33 additional hours of the project inspector to be able to complete the work. So that's what this supplemental agreement is for. It's for a fee of $3,800 for that additional work. I did look back, and the total project cost was $410,800. So the with this additional $3,800, the fee for the construction observation was right about 6%, which really is in line with this type of work and this type of a project. Also, as I mentioned, the final cost was $410,000, and that's actually $35,000 less than the engineer's cost opinion on the project at the time of the letting, which was $445,000. So it ended up being a good project for the housing as well as for the city. So based on everything that has been done and prepared and for the services performed, I would recommend the council approve resolution 3021 for the additional services fee.
Any questions for John?
John, and there is adequate funds in the housing department budget to cover this, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I'd so move.
Second.
Anybody else with any questions, comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Dar,
Aye.
Jaeger,
Aye.
Friesman,
Aye.
Whitman,
Aye.
Knighton,
Aye.
Keith had to think for a minute there. He wasn't quite sure you were saying his name or if you're just clearing your throat there for a while. So
Trying to save a little breath. You better call Star too and get his vote.
he was first.
Oh,
you first.
I fell asleep there. Sorry about that.
All right. Next is then Resolution 3121, which is accepting the wayfinding project. John, I'm assuming this is you again.
Yes. Well, the wayfinding project has been completed. Signs and More, they're out of Independence. They were the contractor. And if you recall, this was an implementation of the wayfinding study that was prepared, and the different wayfinding signs, the entry signs, the information kiosks, they were all included in one total project. And that total cost of that project was ended up being $152,680, which is actually less than the bid amount. So it came in under budget. The original bid was about $157,000. So we ended up saving a little bit of money on this. The total payment, final payment, is $10,696.43. So I would recommend the council approve Resolution 3121, accepting the project and authorizing that final payment to Signs and More.
So move.
Second.
Anybody have any comments on this project?
I was just curious if anybody else on the council's heard many comments about it or talked to anyone that's really mentioned this or brought it up. I have not, but I'm just curious.
I have not either tonight.
Bye-bye.
I just heard a few comments early on about, the main comment I heard was about the direction of the high school.
I was gonna say the same thing. That was really the only thing I heard. People thought it was a wonky way to get there, but I haven't heard anything other than that.
I did hear a comment about that also, but on the other hand, I have heard a lot of positive comments about the
Absolutely.
signs and you know,
Mhm.
number one, the information they give, but also just the professional appearance of the signs also.
It's a nice project to get done after a lot of work over many years.
I would like to, you know, periodically, and I know there's already been some comments, you know, review as far as what additional signs we may want to do at some point. Main one being Wildwood Golf Course as you're coming in on Highway 14. So I think that that's something that we might want to kind of keep in mind as far as what additional signs could we use that we maybe didn't get the first time around, and you know, maybe put up a sign or two here and there as we go forward, just kind of keeping that in the back of our mind, I guess. All right, any other comments? We have a motion, Trudy. Clerk will call the roll.
Jaeger,
Aye.
Friesman,
Aye.
Pittman,
Aye.
Knighton,
Aye.
Dar,
Aye.
All right. Next, we have the resolution 3221 and also 3321, which are remodeling projects. And Steve, I don't know, I'll let you do the discussion, see how you want to approach these two, or
Sure.
because they are combined, they are one quote. So I don't, do we need two resolutions, or even
We-
though they're one quote?
Right, we need two resolutions because we really have two projects here. So we have a resolution
Okay.
approving one, and we have a resolution approving the other. But yeah, like you said, the thing of it is they both need to be accepted to be good in this. So, because as I mentioned in my notes, we've been working on the 401 North Main Chamber Building, trying to get that bid out for about 2 years now. First time we bid it out, we received 0 bids, but we did receive some interest from a local contractor. We tried to negotiate and work something out after the bid, and there just wasn't interest there. So that project kind of sat on the shelf until we knew what the next move would be. And then the ambulance bay project remodel came along, and we thought, okay, well, here are two fairly small projects. We'll be able to, if we can do both of these at the same time, we can hopefully get somebody to give us a quote. And so we received an initial quote, we got a second quote, and so now we have two quotes to compare. And so we have two projects, but we have really a low quote on one and a low quote on the other. But you really can't look at them individually because they can't be selected individually, because that's not how they were bid. So whether it be Henkel or Stege, they're bidding based on both the projects being accepted. But they are separate projects, so it's kind of a unique situation. So as I put in my packet here, we've got this first resolution is for the 401 North Main. Henkel's overall bid on that is $60,520. Stege's bid or quote is $78,084. So that one it's the lower of the two. The next one we look at will be the bid on the ambulance bay remodel. And in that case, Stege is the low quote at $126,863, and Henkel is $138,900. But since the bids aren't good individually, looking at them as a whole, you've got the Henkel overall bid for both projects is $199,420, and the one from Stege is $204,947. So overall, Henkel's got the lower quotes of the projects. So in my packet, again, I included the layout, the plans, the specs for the chamber building. We've looked at this many times over the last couple of years, and pretty much spells all what we're looking at there. And then also attached, we've got the bid from Stege. So there's some alternates were quoted by one and not the other. So what we've done is we've given you an apples to apples comparison between the two. So that's when you, in that summary there, you see that the cost comparisons between the two are based on the quotes that we received. So I know Mark Moeen is here tonight. He's from Martin Garden Architecture. He's been our architect on the project that's helped put these quotes together. So I don't know if anybody has any questions for myself or Mark or anything.
These are both budgeted in their respective budgets.
They are. The 401 North Main, we budgeted for that, well, the first time here a couple years ago, but we've saved money. We levied at least 3 different years for funds for that project. So we have the money sitting. It's technically sitting out there in debt service, so we would move that money over for debt service. The money for the ambulance bay, that was a project that came up, after we did the budget last year. It really came up last summer. So we don't have that budget per se. We have it in our budget amendment that we're going to do here for fiscal year 21. And that's why you see on our fiscal year 22 budget that we approved, we've got $60,000 in that short-term borrowing for this year for fiscal year 22, and then plan for fiscal year 23. So those 260s will be 120 to help offset that total amount that we're gonna, it's not gonna offset all of it, but the vast majority of it. So we will have funding on the ambulance reimbursed for that. The chamber one here, we actually have that sitting ready to go.
Okay. I so move.
Second.
Well, this motion is for resolution 3221, which is the remodel project at 401 North Main.
Right.
Any further comments or questions? Clerk will call the roll.
Friesman,
Aye.
Pittman,
Aye.
Knighton,
Aye.
Dar,
Aye.
Jaeger.
Aye.
All right. So next is resolution 3321, which is the quote for the ambulance bay remodel project. And I think we've had the discussion on that one. So entertain a motion for that 3321.
So move.
So
Ken.
moved.
Jerry and Keith in one order or another, Trudy.
Take your pick.
Any other questions or comments on this project?
I'll just mention that, when we finally negotiated that contract with AMR this last June, that went into place last July, it was with the understanding that that the city was gonna be able to provide them space to operate. And so this has been a work that's been in process for several months. AMR has been very patient with us as we work through this to try and get this done. Nothing happens quickly. So it's glad to be able to be moving forward with this to get this finished. And we don't have to buy a building.
Yeah. Keep our inventory. I see the chief is here. We buy enough police cars. We don't need to be buying more buildings, right, chief? All right. Any other comments? If not, we will, clerk will call the roll.
Pittman,
Aye.
Knighton,
Aye.
Dar, Jaeger,
Aye.
Friesman,
Aye.
All right. Next is resolution 3421, which is the TAP project on the 11th Avenue Bike Trail. John, I would guess you're going to take this one.
Yes. Okay, we talked a little bit about this at Wednesday's planning session, or last week's planning session, excuse me. And currently the Charlie Western Bike Trail just ends at F Street, and what this will do is it'll provide a needed extension or continuation. Plus, it will also serve for getting access up to the relocated trail, or the relocated railroad depot that's going to be used as the passenger train museum, as well as a trailhead for the Charlie Western Trail. And okay, here's kind of a concept plan. What this is here on the left side is North Grand. Along here is 11th Avenue to D Street. And to the east is E Street, and that's the street that goes through, crosses the railroad tracks up to 13th Avenue, and then F Street. And right now that the Charlie Western Trail just comes up to F Street and ends. And this over here at the corner of 11th Avenue and D Street, this is where that the relocated depot will sit. And so what we're proposing is to extend the trail from F Street along this quasi street, 11th Avenue, up to D Street. And then at D Street, we'd cross over and go along the south side of the road along in the grass area. And this area would be just like what we've done in the past couple extensions along Clark Street. Now the TAP, Transportation Alternatives Program, the TAP, TAP, that is a federally funded program. And the funds are really distributed through the local COGs, and our local COG is North Iowa Area Council of Governments. And it requires a application, and part of that application requires an official endorsement from the city council. And the big part of this is that the council will, the resolution basically states that the city will maintain and fund this or maintain the project for a minimum of 20 years. So we do have, pardon me?
Yeah, and all this extension is on city property?
Yes, we'll go down, we'll use 11th, what 11th Avenue, and then on from D to North Grand will be in the grass area, which is our
But that's our right-of-way property.
yes.
Okay. And this, we're talking about this going through whether or not the depot is moved?
Yes. Let me bring this back up, because as I mentioned, it's, it'll serve both, but it really is a needed continuation, because if we can get up here to North Grand, this is Lane Street right here, and through basically on street trails, we can go along Lane up to Johnson,
Right.
and then go down Johnson to the river, and then at the river, there's already a trail there that would take you up to the Cable State Bridge, and that goes across the other side of the river and up along Sherman Creek to Gilbert Street. And then from there, using the wide sidewalk along Gilbert Street, just crossing Sherman Creek to Illinois, having another on-street trail along Illinois will bring you right there to the other end of the Charlie Western Trail. So then we would have a loop.
I get all that, but we're talking about extending it to North Grand regardless of whether or not the depot is moved. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Very good.
I know at different times I've heard comments regarding that right of way along there between E and F streets. I
Right.
guess that truly is city property down in there.
Well,
If
I
that's-
mean, we use it as a street.
And we're working through those details. I mean, it's
Okay,
understood to be a railroad right of way in there.
okay,
But when you have a city and a railroad that own property that nobody has seemed to care about, it's, the legal descriptions are a little few and far between. But nonetheless, that's an area that we're working through. We're going to be surveying, and we'll have all those facts in place before we pull the trigger on anything. But we're pretty confident it's not street right of way, but it could turn out to be some nice trail right of way.
okay. And the other thing is, I noticed in the write-up here and even John's comments when he started out talking about this depot being the trailhead, that has not been decided by the city at this point, correct?
Right. I think it has the potential to be that.
That's fine, but I mean, I think also we need to think about, we've talked about changing, North Main, how it accesses North Grand and things like that, and that's going to happen right at this same intersection, which is going to really change traffic patterns there and things like that. I just think there's some other things that we need to consider. I love the fact that the bike trail is going to get, extended out and things like that, but I think there's some other things going on right there that need some more discussion and some more time to think about it.
And I think ultimately that's going to help, if and when we redo Main Street there, that's going to really help facilitate the trail crossing right there, because we'll be looking to put in some traffic control. So that'll actually allow for a safer crossing in general. But we know we need to get to North Grand. So how it ends up officially crossing there all depends on how that street gets redone, if it gets redone, and how that all comes into play. But we got to get there first.
I was going to mention that too, Steve, that, with bringing that up there, like Maine, and having a new intersection there at North Grand, we would have signals there. And so then, part of that design would be for a pedestrian crossing as well.
I just suggest that more people on the council and the staff get on their bicycles and ride around town a little bit, a few times during the summer. It's interesting out there.
You can get anybody needs a free stove or refrigerator, you could probably pick one up there too.
True. I usually walk it daily, Delane.
Yeah, but get on a bicycle on the streets and try that on for size sometime.
I've tried it on bike too. I prefer walking it. Yeah, it's a bumpy ride on a bike.
I moved for 34th, 21.
Second.
Any other discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Knighton,
Aye.
Star,
Aye.
Jaeger,
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Pittman.
Aye.
And John, this will get us in, hopefully get us in the pipeline, but this probably isn't going to happen for a couple of years, even if we do get the approval of this funding.
That's right, yes. So it'd be probably even maybe construction in 2024. And, you know, it is a competitive process. So, you know, a lot of towns come into NICOG, and so we have to put our application in.
John's always done well for us before, so we'll count on you again, John.
Thanks.
All right, let's move on then to Resolution 3521 on the 2080E agreement for the local access channel. Steve, are you going to lead this discussion?
Yeah. So historically, we've had 3-year agreements between the city, school, chamber, and Community Revite, or Main Street, Iowa Association. And it's in regard to operating the local access network. We pay the school the larger share of that, and they provide a staff person and facility through this agreement. The chamber oversees part of the chamber and Revite oversee the actual channel itself, getting stuff on there for the calendar and different things. And so we're kind of finding ourselves at a crossroads in various levels here. First of all, we had our 28E ended in fiscal year 20 was the last year. So fiscal year 21, which we're more than halfway through now, is going to be year 1 of this contract. We had with the creation of the telecom, we had 2/3 of our broadband commission go over to that. So we had several months where we didn't have a broadband commission available. So now we're bringing this to you as far as, looking to approve this 2-year agreement. The Broadband Commission has recommended this for approval. And so it'll take care of fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 22. The majority of the discussion, at least initially with the Broadband Commission, revolved around, the funding source for this is the cable franchise fees. And those are paid in based on the sales of cable TV, which in our case is Mediacom. And so those sales have been declining annually. So the available funding continues to drop. And so that's why you see the change in funding to the school is there's, the first year is 43,163. The second year is 41,000. Even in fiscal year 21, we're spending in a deficit, but in fiscal year 22, it's based on breaking even, based on revenues. And so the chamber piece remains at 3,900. The Main Street community revitalization piece remains at 10,000. But what's the long-term use and approach to this? And that's something that's going to take additional discussion as well. And so between the Broadband Commission and city staff, we're going to be working through that here over the next year to figure out what we want to do. Because a lot, the equipment that's going to be needed to be able to broadcast to the local access channel is going to be rather expensive. And so we need to figure out what's the value of doing that? Is that something we want to do, or is there a better way to do that to get our information out to the public, whether it be on YouTube or city website or what have you? Do we need to be broadcasting on that local access channel? So those are all part of the, And what are the roles of each of these entities, and what are they, what should they be, and how much should we, how much should be paid for them? So those are all things that we're going to be looking at here as we take time to really fully review this. But this agreement is good for 2 years instead of 3 for that reason, so that we can finish out 21, do fiscal year 22, and probably about a year from now, we'll be looking at doing a new agreement, whatever that may be. So with that, the Broadband Commission recommends Resolution 3521 with the 28E agreement from the city, the Charles City Community School District, Chamber of Commerce, and Community Rebate.
I would just echo what Steve said. I'm the liaison to this group, and they've had a lot of good discussion on this and put some good thought into it. So I think it's a good compromise agreement here to kind of buy some time and keep things going.
Just to echo what Delane said, and what Steve said also, we've got 3 new members on that commission now. And it's kind of bringing some new insight into that group, which has been kind of interesting to see, what 3 new faces have to say about this. So they've had some good discussion already, being new members. So I think it'll be a good discussion in the next year to figure out how this is all going to go. Do we even want to have a local access channel, or do we just want to do it online? So there's a lot of discussion and decisions that group will have to make in the next year.
So move.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Star,
Aye.
Jaeger,
Aye.
Friesman,
Aye.
Pittman,
Aye.
Knighton.
Aye.
6:37 City Hall time, Steve.
Yep.
All right, next is Resolution 3621, setting the date for the public hearing and any additional action on a proposal to enter into general obligation corporate purpose loan agreements and to borrow money there under. Steve.
Yeah, so that's the official way of saying we're setting 2 public hearings for our short-term borrowing or our one-day borrowing, whatever you want to call it. There's 2 public hearings because some of them are general corporate purpose and some of them are essential corporate purpose. And so those get broken out between the 2 resolutions as far as what that max borrowing amount could be. The general corporate purpose are things like the Learning Center capital project, the fire station roof. It's essential to buy a fire truck, but it's general to fix the building you keep it in. So figure that one out. So any of those building repairs a lot of times are general corporate purpose. Otherwise, the vast majority of it is essential. And so we have 2 separate public hearings to hear those. So we recommend approving Resolution 3621, setting those 2 public hearings to be held at our March 15th meeting at 6 o'clock.
And this is the same process that the city's used for a good number of years regarding this one-day borrowing and all that sort of stuff. So
It is.
nothing new.
We work with John Danos at Dorsey and Whitney. He's the one that drafts and puts all this together. A little nuance this year is we have 1 resolution for both public hearings. I think before that we used to do separate resolutions, but he combined them into 1. So same process essentially.
That being said, I'd so move.
Second.
Motion is second. Anybody have any other questions? Clerk will call the roll.
Jaeger,
Aye.
Friesman,
Aye.
Pittman,
Aye.
Knighton.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Star.
All right, so we'll set those public hearings for the 15th meeting, March. Moving on to any miscellaneous correspondence tonight.
None, Your Honor.
Brad, anything for you tonight?
No, Your Honor.
Judy, any other city clerk business?
Next meeting's going to be March 10th. There'll be a planning session at 6 o'clock.
And Steve, city administrator's report as you're on your way out.
Yeah, so real briefly, I guess I'll just mention that as far as the telecom is concerned, our request for information is due this Friday. And so what that is doing is it's reaching out to other potential business partners, banks, lenders, telecoms, what have you, that might be interested in partnering with the city telecom to see about moving the project forward. We're looking at possibilities of a public-private partnership, added things that we could maybe do to enhance funding opportunities. So we'll be very interested to see what the information is that comes back from that. There'll kind of be some additional feedback on the project to see what we might need to change, tweak, or do to keep that moving forward. So just to let you guys all know that that's due this Friday. And then after about 2 weeks or so, I think we'll have information come back to the telecom board on what was in those RFIs once they've had some time to distill that from the consultant. I'll just mention too, we had a E911 meeting last week when we were discussing the funding. The E911 funding that historically has come to the city to help pay in that secretary position in the police department. The group did decide to move that funding to the county for a new shared position over there. So I did have that figured into the budget. It doesn't help that operating deficit that we have in there that we planned, but it doesn't hurt it too much, but it doesn't help it, I guess. So with that, we're looking at ways to move forward with that. We have the animal control position, we have the police secretary position. We've just advertised for the police secretary, so we know we need to move forward on. So we're doing that, and we're trying to work out the details on how we're going to make that work in the budget. So I wanted to mention that. The last thing I'll mention is spring cleanup 2021. We're trying to get that figured out. There's a lot of concern yet from the ability to do the pickup and do it safely from our partners, and so we're trying to figure out a way of how we do this while maintaining safety of the crews and the public. And so we're trying to get something figured out. We're trying to get it on the books here, but I don't have anything to announce just yet. But we are working to try and figure out how that's going to come together. So stay tuned. That's all I have.
All right, thanks, Steve. Anybody else have any board or commission or committee reports you'd like to share tonight?
Just that the planning and zoning group met last week, and they're working on their project of getting the, I don't know, whatever you call it, their guidelines, city guidelines for that type of work updated and things. And that's quite a process. And you got a lot of information in front of them, but I think it's a very worthwhile project and process that they're going through. Hopefully it'll bring a little clarity to what we're doing.
Yeah. On that note, and maybe John was going to mention this, but one of the things that they talked about at the planning and zoning meeting was the issue of the paving of parking lots. And I know we've been kind of hung up on that, on how we move forward. I know from a staff level, we've kind of worked through a plan that John put together for doing a hybrid as far as paving the portion of it, but not all of it. I know the planning and zoning is supportive of that. And I think there's a number of projects that might be hinging on that. So we might be seeing a request or a reference from the planning and zoning for the city council to consider adopting a plan going forward. That might be coming up at a future meeting, but I just wanted you to be aware of that, because I know there's one pending sale, and there's another project that's been open to that idea of what's been presented, but we just need to have some official city approval from the council to do that. And last I recall, I think you wanted to have feedback from planning and zoning to see how it was going to fit into the code. And while we don't officially see it in the code yet, we know that is the intent of the Planning and Zoning Commission, is to have something like that in the code. So I'll leave that there, I guess. John, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I guess it would be nice to have some type of direction, but before we, because it's going to take a little while to get an actual zoning ordinance fully complete and adopted. It'd be kind of nice to have some direction. Is what we're going to do as far as parking requirements.
Yeah, so I think, like I say, the planning and zoning talked about maybe doing this one portion of the rewrite earlier than the rest of the rewrite, just so that these projects that Steve mentioned can make their decisions too, so. Anything else from anybody? If not, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
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 6:45, Steve. Drive safely, John. You
Hey,
too,
Brian.
everybody.
Thanks, Jerry.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good night.
Aye.